welcome back everyone to the Outer Circle Inner Stillness conversations around sobriety, spirituality, a thriving, thriving way of life, sober way of life. And here we are again talking about the inner life and the body and family life and a whole variety of things. Um, I I have a really fun guest today. This is Elizabeth Pasimio. And you might have noticed, hey, we have the same last name. And that is not coincidence. And I might actually have to explain my name a little bit because I just need to. But anyway, Elizabeth, all the way from San Diego, California. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. Um, if you would just say a little bit about kind of who you are and what's your corner of the recovery world, the healing world, the spiritual world, by way of introduction, and then we'll unearth the topic from there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm an acupuncturist. And I love dealing with the interconnection of mind, body, and spirit healing within the Chinese medicine framework. And the reason I chose this modality is because it can treat the spirit. It affects the emotions, and it can treat issues that relate to how we feel about ourselves and how we see the world. And of course, spirituality comes into that. And so for me, I have a lot of experience in recovery and 12-step recovery, starting with Al-Anon. I've been a member of Al-Anon for over 20 years. I've also worked the steps in some other programs. And I currently, the sobriety journey has been an interesting one. And I've learned a lot I had 14 years of consecutive sobriety where I really learned a lot. And I just recently realized that having an alcoholic father, I thought, this is really a pitfall in life. And I don't want to repeat the same patterns. And so that's why I went to Al-Anon, and I learned about the family disease of alcoholism. And it can be alcoholism, it can be addiction, it can be any ism, shopaholism, any of these things. And it really illuminated to me the family system that I grew up in, and how I developed these survival techniques that kept me safe as a child. But when I became an adult, they became liabilities. And I kept experiencing the same hardships, the same troubles interpersonally and inside myself, and realizing that those things that kept me safe before now were actually in the way of becoming a happy, healthy individual and having healthy relationships. And so I also chose to become sober because I thought this is the main lesson that I'm being taught by having been born into this family. And I want to be clear that I'm still on a sobriety journey. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I am completely sober from all substances, that people have different definitions of it. So I just want to be very transparent that yes, I have been completely sober before. I wouldn't call myself completely sober at the moment, but I'm on a journey. I'm still in recovery, but now I'm actually doing Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered 12-step program. And we focus on hurts, habits, and hangups. And so it's not quite as black and white as the other recovery, but it's working for me right now. So I just want to be clear and be very honest that I'm on a journey, and that it has really informed my ability to help others, my patients, but also just the people in my life, to see how our hurts, habits, and hangups from our past, whether it was from our family, it's how we learned how to be, or actual experiences in our lives, that it really helps to look at them and then to have a spiritual program to work with a higher power, with God, to really maximize healing. And really the goal is to live a happy life and for the joy that I feel like we're meant to experience while we're here on earth.
Yeah, thank you for bringing in a lot of your story, a lot of story condensed in a really really beautiful way, and a lot of really important topics. Here you talk about the mind, body, spirit unity as really key, and family systems that we come out of, and we both come out of the same like extended family system, and are now figuring out what do we do with that. And the sobriety journey, again, it's obviously it's a major theme of this show, and very dear to my heart. So I'm yeah, excited for all of these things. I wonder. So speaking of sobriety, and I really appreciate the way you kind of expand that beyond just I need to stop drinking. But I wonder if you could actually say a little bit. So how are you defining sobriety for yourself these days?
I really am. Actively on a journey. Like I just spoke to my sponsor about it today, and I currently I use cannabis medicine to help me with some anxiety. I'm actually recovering from a narcissistic abuse, 12-year marriage. And so the cannabis medicine, I work with a cannabis medicine nurse, and I've learned a lot about cannabis medicine and earth medicine. And it really helps me with anxiety. And I feel like it has made it so that I can do the deep healing work, and really walking into the darkness. Like I have to really face my darkness and what I've been through in order to move forward. And the cannabis medicine does help me, and having a professional who's guiding me through it also really helps. As I was getting out of the marriage, I did revisit alcohol, and I found that it doesn't really work for me still. And I learned how to do moderation, and I was kind of working with myself like, oh, maybe after 14 years I can be moderate. But I kept turning it over to my higher power, to God. I kind of vacillate, but like I'm very much following Jesus and God at the moment. Like that hasn't always been my journey, but that is where I am now. But I generally like to say higher power when I'm talking to an audience where I don't know if they have a church wound, a Christian church wound or not. I really like to meet people where they're at, because I fell away from Jesus for a time, and thank God there was 12-step recovery, and thank God there was the idea of a higher power. Otherwise, who knows what have become of me. And I have since come back to Jesus, and he's a really big part of my sobriety, my recovery now. And so I have decided to not drink anymore. And so I'm back on that. And I am giving myself a lot of grace about it. And I feel like God would as well. I tried it, and I kind of see that all of those old patterns come up of like, but maybe if I have more, and it's going to be okay. And I kind of can feel, even though I stayed moderate, I could feel that inside of me, like wanting to get out of control. And it was like a lot of extra work. And I turned it all over to God, and then God kind of made it clear, like, this is not how you become your best self. And I'm extremely dedicated to full on healing, mind, body, spirit healing. And so I don't think it's a done deal, but at the moment I'm taking it one day at a time, which is like the only way to do it, really. When I think back, like when I think to the future, I feel a little anxious about it, but that's like when I first got sober, it felt that way as well. Mm-hmm. And I also am very clear that sobriety is an acquired taste. And I would share that a lot in meetings, because before it was like high highs, low lows, high highs, low lows. And sobriety is more like, so boring, but like, I love it. I'd much rather have like boring this than like the high, like this was really, I'm talking high highs, like ecstatic, party, whatever. And the low lows were like, I kind of want to die. Like I feel so terrible about myself or my decisions, or my lack of decisions, my lack of taking care of myself. And so I love how sobriety does this. And it's not just physical sobriety. I mean, so for me now, so much of my sobriety is emotional sobriety. And what I realized growing up in the family disease of alcoholism is that I learned how to be a doormat, and I learned how to light myself on fire and rage at people, myself and others.
Yeah.
And so what I've been praying for is this emotional control of like, and that I think only God can give me, of I don't need to be a doormat to survive, but I also don't need to light myself on fire because it's exhausting for me. And then I get an emotional hangover afterwards, like going for other people's jugulars in an argument or something that I feel really strongly about. I've done that, and it's very taxing and not what I want to do in my life. Like, I would like to create peace in my little corner of the world. I feel like that's what's God's will for me, and it has to start from the inside. And so that's really where I'm at, what I'm focusing on, and I'm finding a lot of recovery and peace in that endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really thankful for that, and thinking that span of like I'm the doormat or I'm lighting myself on fire. It's like that sounds like those childhood survival mechanisms that maybe once upon a time that helped you get the attention you needed, and now becomes a deficit. I think for me it was very much just like either be very silent or be like superly extravagantly high performing. And like that was kind of how I survived my childhood, and now I'm finding that to be exhausting. Um, yeah, I I mean, I'm really appreciating how you talk about sobriety as this journey, as this acquired taste. I very frequently compare it to the spiritual conversion, and as this it's this journey, it's this process, and there's not really a done point to it. Like, someone coming into the church, coming into the Christian faith. I mean, there might be this initial burst where like they're reading all of the scriptures, or learning the theology, they're doing all of the things for the first time. But then at some point, like you've read all the Bible stories, and like the songs, and like now it's just okay. Now you just have to keep doing that until you die. uh, and I'm being a little bit reductionistic because there's a lot of layers there, but it does. It's there's this reorientation from thinking like I need to be in the highs and the lows to feel something, and like seeing stability is boring versus maybe now seeing stability is like, oh, that's calm, that's simple, that's stable, that's that there's a security there. Yeah, so I really appreciate the way you described that.
And what that brings up for me is the nervous system. And so I think it's very much overlooked, this whole like fight or flight or rest and digest, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And that's something that I provide in acupuncture. And it's something I explain to my patients a lot. And I let them know, like, hey, fight or flight is kind of like our culture all the time. Our society right now, everything is fight or flight. And then remind them what happens physiologically when you're in fight or flight. All of your resources go to your arms and your legs and your eyes, because you need to run away from whatever's trying to kill you. And so it makes sense. Thank God we have that, except that things are not really chasing us to kill us generally now. But the deadlines we have, work, home, pressures, finances, keeping up with the Joneses, all of this keeps us in fight or flight. And then I say, so what do you think's happening to your vital organs when all of the resources, which in Chinese medicine, we call it qi and blood, when they're all in the appendages? What about your kidneys? Like your liver, like the organs that keep your body functioning, they're not getting what they need. And then we develop chronic diseases like, diabetes or immune disorders or things like that. And so the idea of getting it back into rest and digest, even for a couple of moments a day, when my patients lie here and they have needles in, they can't go do anything. And so they're breathing. Usually I have some essential oils going on, and they go into rest and digest. And then they feel rejuvenated. And the idea is, hey, I need you to try to do this every day at home. Some of the ways to do it: prayer, meditation, certain music, yoga. These are all some nature, however anyone can do it. And even if you just do it for 1 minute to 5 minutes a day, it makes life better. And we can even come back to our lives and our challenges and our tasks with a renewed sense of like, it's going to be okay. Like our body is actually telling us it's okay. And if we don't take that time, we're kind of like, it's not okay. Nothing's okay. I can't do enough. But chronically doing that to ourselves, it's a spiral downwards, unfortunately. And really connecting with God, it is a calming it's a calming factor. And so I really kind of put them together. And I even have a patient who termed my acupuncture sessions Acu-Jesus sessions.
Right.
Because I first check in with people. Like I'm not going to, I want to find out where they're comfortable, because I want to love people well and I want to share Jesus's love with them. But if they have a church wound, jumping right into Jesus, that's not the way to do it. And so I want to show them God's love just through me, just like I care about you. I want to hear about how you're doing. What can I do to help you? I'm going to share with you anything relevant from my life that maybe can give you some experience, strength, and hope. And so if they're into Jesus, then I kind of talk about, how's your relationship with Jesus? Like, what are you doing? And I mean, I literally had a patient not too long ago say, oh, my problems aren't that big. I don't want to bother God with my problems.
Oh dear.
And oh dear is right. And I thought, wow, I mean, I've heard of this idea of people feeling like God's not big enough, strong enough to handle everyone's problems, but to actually hear a grown adult person really believe that. And even that woman was in turmoil in many different ways. So I take a breath, I pray for the Holy Spirit to be there with me and to speak through me. And I say, oh, honey, that's a lie from the enemy that God's not big enough or God doesn't have time for you. Like, that's just not true at all. Like, there is way more God than we could all draw on God at the exact same time. There's still enough God. And there's always God's love for us. And so to, really encourage people to, and then there's other ones who feel, oh, well, I kind of feel like God's abandoned me. And so sometimes I actually pray over my patients. Of course, I make sure it's okay first, but it's kind of like, God, please come and heal, like reconcile this person with you who, they feel abandoned, but it's just, it couldn't possibly be true. Like we can always come back to God. We can always come back. We're always going to be forgiven and welcomed. And I've had patients say, they come back and I'm like, well, how are you doing overall? And they're like, well, I don't feel abandoned by God anymore.
That's good.
But that's a great start. Let's go from there.
Yeah. I find myself reaching into that more and more with my own self, and or like availing myself of the opportunity to, pray about my clients. I mean, definitely out of session and sometimes in session too, just as they're talking, just like kind of a quiet prayer going on in the back of my mind. There's a lot of times where, someone comes in with a heavier session and it's a way, I don't know. So sometimes, and it might be like I'm just like really disconnected and like good at compartmentalization. Like I don't know that I always feel like bothered by it myself, but I can recognize, whoa, this is big, this is heavy. Like I don't have wisdom for you, or like I can't fix you. But really, just like yearning with compassion for the person and recognizing, there is God. There is something higher than us, and it can yield you into that. To the uninitiated, who's hearing about Chinese medicine and acupuncture and things, like I've been in proximity to this for a while, so I know a little bit. But I wonder if you could walk someone through what's the day in the life of a Chinese medical practitioner, or like what are some of the distinctives of what that is? Is it just tea and herbs and maybe secretly you're a ninja, or what is it?
I love Chinese medicine. It's really fascinating. And it's not, yes, there's acupuncture, there's needles. Yes, there are herbs, which are fabulous. And there's a couple other modalities like moxibustion, which is a burning of an herb near the body, but not like burning you. And then cupping, fire cupping is part of Chinese medicine, which is wildly popular nowadays in all kinds of different ways, which I'm super happy about. And then there's nutrition. There's a lot of nutritional guidelines from Chinese medicine for different ailments. And then there's like Qigong and Tai Chi, where you're working with the Qi of the body. So Qi is a really primary principle in Chinese medicine. It's the idea that we have an energy that's always coursing through our body. And if you think about it, like think about how the heart beats. It's because of negative and positive polarities on a cellular level that causes your heart to beat involuntarily. You don't have to make it happen; it just happens. And so so there is an energy. It's actually a magnetism because it's about polarity, like that goes throughout your whole body. And so needles are metal and they conduct electricity. So I'm literally talking to someone's body by putting the needles in, and I'm like, hey, over here, hey, the stomach channel, it needs to be moved. Like there's too much, there's like a clogging, we call it stagnation. And so I'm telling the body to move the energy through the stomach channel. Or like they have foggy thinking and they can't remember things. And so we put the needle on the top of the head, for example, to like, hey body, we need some energy over here. This is also how I keep baby safe when I'm working on pregnant mamas. Like with it kind of like throws a protective kind of netting and holds everything up, or any type of prolapse, for example. And so I'm communicating with the body. And then the combination of the points that I'll do on a patient, like I'm telling it certain things to do, like, hey, we need to make more blood over here. We need to move some chi over here. And then I explain, because some people are scared of needles, and I explain, it's understandable because people are under the impression that the skin is like a solid piece. It's more like a sponge. The needle goes in between the little spaces, because if it didn't, blood would come out every single time I put in a needle. And yeah, a little tiny drop of blood might come out every once in a while, but it's not usual. It's like 1 in every 100 needles maybe. And it's not a bruise. It's not usually a big deal. And so we have a saying in Chinese medicine, where there's free flow of qi and blood, there's no pain. If there is pain, there's some type of stagnation of qi and blood. And so this is, yes, it's physical, but qi is not a substantial, it's not matter that's substantial. It's more of an insubstantial, but it also involves emotions. And so, for example, the emotion of the liver is anger and resentment. Interesting for alcoholism, isn't it? Because step four is all about all of your resentments, all of the ways that you feel like the world has done you wrong, or the people. You get to write it all down. Step 4 is a doozy. It is very powerful, but whoo, it is intense. And so letting go of those resentments and of course, forgiveness is a really big thing. And then making amends, all of that. And so anyway, back to the liver, and then the chi of the liver is like when you have constrained emotion, when you hold everything in really tight, and usually there's anger, there's resentment, and there's also just constraint. Like you have this God-given emotion of like, this makes me angry, but I don't feel safe here to be angry. Maybe I am in an abusive marriage, or maybe my parent is an alcoholic and like will come down on me really hard. And so it's not safe to express my anger. So then I take it back in, I kind of swallow it. And then it's like you're a soda bottle all shooken up, and you're like this. And so the liver gets mad. The liver can get angry. And when it kind of gets congested, and then heat is what is the product. And then where does heat go?
It rises.
It rises. So you get floaters in your eyes. You get migraines, which are also usually centered in the eye, or you get vertigo, dizziness, because it's called liver yang rising. And it's basically the heat from the liver coming up and just like kind of like a tornado in your head. And it's really painful. It's really difficult to deal with. There can be ringing in the ears as well. So that's an example of how emotional issues can cause physical issues. Yeah. And Chinese medicine totally has a way of treating that with acupuncture, with moxibustion, and with herbs.
And it sounds like what you're able to do is build on that and say, yes, the moxibustion, acupuncture, herbs, but also there's the emotional process and the spiritual work of, I need to work through a resentment. I need to forgive someone. I need to seek forgiveness. It sounds like that whole combination altogether is what really brings the fullness of healing.
That's the jam right there. That's the way to do it. The combination of those. And so that's what I do with them. And then sometimes they tell me, I've never told anyone this, or I have no one to share with about this. And I recently, so I'm in San Diego. I'm actually in Bonita, which is very close to the border of Mexico. And so I get a lot of people who are Mexican culture, and I know a lot about it. I feel like an honorary. I tell people that I'm half Filipino, half white, and half Mexican, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, welcome to my life. Yep. And I speak Spanish. And so anyway, just like that idea of I can't share with anyone culturally, like they're going to judge me. or they're going to think I'm a bad wife, or I'm a bad mom, or I'm a bad person. And so a lot of the times they haven't shared with anyone. And so even just feeling safe enough while they're getting treated by me to tell me this is what's really happening, they've already started the process of healing. And then I do my best to just hold space for them and let them know, like, oh, honey, like that's totally understandable. And if they have a relationship with God, I'm like, I really recommend you pray about this and reconnect. Like you there is help for this. You don't have to just live with this type of anger, resentment, depression. Like there is a way out. It's complicated, and this one session is not going to fix it, but like you need people. You have to talk to people in whatever way. So I'm always encouraging, let's continue your healing. Like this is all part of your healing, is sharing. Do you have a safe person, or do you need to get a therapist? Or I always share about recovery groups, because I believe that God works through other people to minister to each other. And I'm very clear that I have a harder time seeing my own stuff. And that's why I have my inner circle, and then I have another circle, and then I have an outer circle of trusted spiritual advisors and friends who then I tell them what's going on. And I feel like God works through them to help shine a light of where I need healing, or for example, what to pray for. Because sometimes I just don't know. I'm kind of frozen. I'm in freeze, or, fight, flight, freeze, all of those things. And having someone else, inviting them and God working through them to help me is really the answer. And so I tell my patients about my process, and that's my process. And so I encourage them, like, do you have someone? Can you get someone? It could even be your pastor, like whoever, but let's start. And do you have people praying for you? Are you praying? Like, let's go do the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the community aspect is really huge, and it's one of the things that I emphasize for all of my people as well. It's kind of it's like a default recommendation almost. Like, yeah, you're coming to do recovery work. Yeah, go to group, get into a group. If not a group, go to some meetings. Some people will find the community in their church, and there's something there. There's benefit to confiding in a friend or like in a spiritual director, absolutely. But it's something about like an organized group that's not just like a friend group hanging out, but like organized and focused around a particular shared goal or shared object of focus. Like there's a really powerful sort of synergy there. I mean, in some settings that can get pushed into like a high of sorts, and we should maybe be careful of those. But even aside from that, like. And I think this is something that we probably run into at our Sunday gatherings. Like again, depending on your style of church. I mean, there's an emotive component to it, but at the core of it, it's you're gathering with people, you're sharing a focus, you're sharing of yourself with the people, and then the other component that maybe gets missed there is like you're doing this over a longer period of time, and I'm inferring this in what you're talking about is that someone maybe shouldn't show up for like an acupuncture session thinking like this will fix me, as much as like one should plan on coming regularly, semi-regularly, longer term.
It really depends on what's happening. But I always tell people, like, I do not want you to keep coming. Like, I want to fix whatever you need. And it's kind of like whack-a-mole. Once we fix that issue, then let's move on to the next issue. And if you continue to have issues, we're just going to like knock them out. And that really is like, oh, they came for their shoulder. And then after I've asked them the questions, I realize, my digestion is really not that great. Okay, well, your shoulder feels better now. Let's work on your digestion. I'll give you some herbs. And then once they're like, I'm kind of feeling great, can I, maybe just come for maintenance? And then they just like the reset. They like how they feel. It helps them just balance. And so then they get downgraded to like once a month, for example. Like if there's an acute issue, it might be twice a week or weekly. And then we could move to every 2 weeks. And then we move to once a month. And then there's some people where they're like, I'm great. I'm fabulous. I have done all the homework that you gave me, Elizabeth. I changed my diet. I now, do some type of spiritual work. I'm moving my body, and life is good and fabulous. And like, bye. And I'm like, fabulous, bye. Send me the next person that you come across who's broken in some way and send them to me. I love getting new people. I love giving them a new perspective on what their life has been and the issues of so many people they have issues, physical, emotional, spiritual, and they think there's no way out. They have no hope. They have no belief that it can change and that anything that they do will change it. That literally hurts my heart. You know, I had a dentist say, oh, I'm going to have to retire because my forearm hurts. And I'm like, have you tried acupuncture? Oh, no, I don't like needles. I might be able to help you. And then she says, I treat her. And then she's like, oh, I guess I can continue. I don't have to retire yet. Like, the fact that they full on were going to completely like retire because of their forearm, because they had no idea anything could possibly help. They just accepted it as this is how it's going to be now. And that can be an emotional, like a depression. There's nothing that could possibly help me. And so I like being the one of like, no, we can make changes in your life. I can help you. This is more, I kind of set it up as like, we're like a team and you bring me what issues you have. And I think of every possible thing that I personally would do if I was in that position. And so I usually write down some homework. I try not to overwhelm. I'm like, how about you just take out gluten this week, you know? Or like, how about we just increase water this week? Let's see how that goes. And then when my patients go and actually spend time, put forth effort, they get better so much faster. Is what I've noticed.
Yeah. I'm wishing you lived in my town. Like so many people do.
Oh.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I get to work with people like in my context, you know, we'll talk thoughts, we'll talk feelings, we'll talk trauma, we'll talk narratives, we'll talk sobriety plan and accountability structure. And, you know, I do internal family systems work. So there's a lot of like, you know, mindfulness and like, not so much body organs, but like, you know, your critical part, your judgment part, your people pleasing part, your acting out part. But I often wish I could reach more into like the body realm and say like, you should try moving in this way, or you should try eating or not eating in this way. Because I know that matters and I know that makes a huge difference. And then I can talk about what I do in my life, but I'm also, I don't know, I'm not specifically trained in that. So I'm a little bit lacking, but I do. I mean, I feel like the corner that you're talking about really would complete that sort of work, to do your trauma work, and then also like get your body helped. So
yeah, it's kind of like the same issue, but we're just coming at it in different ways. And so what I find also is that sometimes people do graduate out of what I do, and then they move into something maybe more physical or maybe more spiritual than what. But I really like. I feel like it's taking someone who wouldn't identify as having like a systematic issue with their lives, like how they're living, how they're choosing to speak to themselves. Like self-talk is like one of the things I'm really focusing on now. Like in realizing, which I'm not really qualified for this. Like that's what you do, but I can really see that when they actually admit to me their self-talk, like they feel safe enough to tell me what they're really thinking. And they maybe have never said this ever. And then kind of helping it move through their body and then giving them ideas. And sometimes I do actually show them like where on their body they can kind of, for example, like nausea, there's like the front of the shin, the stomach channel. Like I'm like, okay, you have to dredge it downwards, you know, or like if you have bloating, like I show them how to massage their tummies in a certain way. And so, and then there's tapping, which I'm not an expert at, but it is definitely based on like acupuncture points. But it's a therapy, and it's like a reprogramming to using those points and changing, I think, from what I understand, like, you know, negative thought processes and breaking it so that new thought processes that are more helpful, loving, giving ourselves more grace and hope can be absorbed.
Yeah. There are some modalities like somatic experiencing place a lot of emphasis on how parts and emotions show up as physical sensations, and there are these other modalities like neurofeedback, like brain spotting, like EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprogramming.
Love it.
Yeah, and they are reaching a little bit more into the physical structures, not just talking. And they're discovering quite a few things that are possible there. Um,
I mean, really, it just lends to like, I mean, I've done EMDR and it's amazing. And I've talked to other people who they've done all kinds of therapy, but their trauma wasn't even really touched until they did EMDR. I have one friend who told me that, and that's why I tried it. And so I I marvel at how miraculous the connection is between our mind, body, and spirit. And God made it that way. And
mhm.
there are a lot. I call one of my other metaphors that I share with my patients is it's kind of like this is the sports car that God gave you, and like of course we can't just drive it into the ground and be like, oh, how dare it need maintenance. And
Mhm.
instead, like a check engine light goes on in that fancy car you got. Okay, I generally use this metaphor for men, but it can work. It works for,
Yeah.
but it's like you wouldn't just ignore the red check engine light. You're going to go take care of it because like this is an investment, and this makes you're proud of this investment that you have, and you want it to keep going. Like we need to be at least that interested in maintaining our actual bodies because this is the vehicle we've been given. We only get one.
Mhm.
So it's like, let's take care. Like when there's a check engine light, oh, my tummy hurts, or like my, what we call elimination, which is, pooping, is having issues. Like we don't just ignore it and run it and like just keep going. We need to find out why it's happening and then get the help that we need, make the changes that we need, and then go from there.
To maybe incorporate another thread, maybe. So one of the things this is making me think of, and I was really thinking about this when you told the story of the dentist with the sore forearm, and I'm hearing had this narrative in their head going on of like, hey, this is something, this must just be how it is. I'm just gonna have to, cave to it or
Mm-hmm.
something. And it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like part of your conversation was in a way allowing them permission to conceive of something different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what that's making me think of again is uh, early childhood or growing up in our families. And we talk some about we every kid has to survive their childhood and has to figure out some way of doing it. And sometimes the survival skills a kid picks up end up being kind of extreme to respond to an
Mm-hmm.
extreme situation. Which someone earlier today was just reminding me there's a quip or a maxim from somewhere that's like abnormal responses to abnormal situations aren't there, that ends up just being like normal or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's making me think about kind of the correlate to the childhood survival skills, which is the narratives that we're taught as kids or the things we inherit from our families. Like even this baseline narrative of like, your body matters, you should take care of it, versus your body doesn't matter, it's just flesh, it's just going to burn, or your body is
Mm-hmm.
like an object for me to do whatever with, or is something. And that's just like one example. I'm sure there's many. um,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be curious a little bit about, as you're working with these wonderful resources from the Chinese medicine world and like doing the recovery work, what are some, yeah, how do you interact with family, like family of origin?
Well, I have a story about that for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's about my divorce and how that has affected my family of origin. And basically, I came to realize it was actually my pastor, and he happened to meet my ex-husband, and he said, your husband's a narcissist, right? And I had no idea. I didn't understand narcissism at all. And I actually was like, no, he's not. No. And then God showed me everything about narcissistic abuse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But it's been textbook narcissistic abuse for 12 years is at that time. And so I just turned my life over to Jesus and was like, hey, I'm terrified. And if your will is to get me out of this marriage, you're going to need to do it for me because I am absolutely terrified. And then God did. And I don't have to go into the details of how that happened, but God definitely did it, because this is how I know when it's God's will and God's working in my life, is when I've prayed and then I find myself in a position I would never, ever choose. because it's really scary and it's really hard. And I seem to be there by myself. Like I would never choose it. And then I remember I turned my life over to God. And I do the third step prayer a lot. And I find myself in places where I'm like, can I please go back, God? I take it back. Do you know the third step prayer?
Remind me.
It's, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them would bear witness to those I would help of thy light, thy power, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And this is the prayer I've just been doing. My sponsor told me to start doing it in about 2019. She's like, memorize it and then just keep repeating it. So I've just been repeating it. That and the long version of the Serenity Prayer. Do you know that one, right? The long version?
I've heard it before.
I can share that one too.
Yeah,
these are the two that I do. So the short part, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
And a way to use the serenity prayer that I was taught is the first part. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I can't change my partner. I can't change my job. I can't change the people. I can't change the world. I can't change the government. I can't, almost everything I can't change. And then the courage to change the things I can, what I do today, what I read, what I listen to, what I put into my body or my psyche, like those are the only things I control are things about me. And then the wisdom to know the difference, like constantly, because I don't know about everyone else, but I keep trying to change things that are not things that I can change. And that causes strife and difficulty. And this is why it is the main prayer for 12-step recovery, I would assert. And it's used all the time. And it is fabulous. But that long version, even better, especially, I like to say accepting, just so we're clear that's not accepting. So accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. And that's something that I share a lot with whomever will listen to me, of who told us that like life was going to be great all the time, or that's what God's job is to make things great all the time. I think God just wants to help us grow. And whenever there is hardship or there's pain, we're being given an opportunity to grow closer to God, to surrender even more, and to cling to him. And we will get through this hard part, and it's going to pass, and there's going to be something great at the end. Mm-hmm. And then something new is going to happen. But like, I believe it to be like a spiraling upwards, like if I keep facing the same issue, it's because I haven't really surrendered to God through that issue yet. I haven't really learned, mostly it's humility to show that like, this isn't even about me really.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Elder Thaddeus of Vitovnica. I mean, he'll talk about what does he say? Something along the lines of like, humility is the most important thing, and until you learn it, God will keep like trying to teach you that until you learn it, because it's really important.
It is. I think it's really the most important, because then it's like, this isn't about me. I'm not the center of the universe. And I think actually, like you had said earlier about being in community, like just going to these types of recovery meetings and listening to other people, and just any normal person, or maybe when I say normal, I'm meaning someone who grew up in the family disease of alcoholism. My monkey mind is like, oh, well, they need to do this. Well, they should do this. Well, they should do that. It's because of this. And then when you practice going to meetings, it's almost like a posture of like, I have no idea what those people need to do, because I have no idea what I'm doing or what I need to do. That's why I'm here. God, higher power, please help me to know what to do, because my best thinking got me here. Mm-hmm. And most of us, when we are at step one, our life has become unmanageable and we need help. And that's humility. Like, how can we grow spiritually if we haven't done step one of like, all this thing that I'm doing, it's not working. I feel terrible physically, emotionally. My relationships are terrible. I don't like my life at all. And then that's step one. And then it's turning our lives over to God. And so humility is essential,
Mm-hmm.
and being open to the fact that there are things that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then hope that things can get better, but they're
Yeah.
not going to come from me. I have to do the footwork. I have to take the action, but it's not from me. But it might be from these people who I'm listening to, and
Yeah.
having compassion for them taught me how to have compassion for myself.
What I really love in there is the idea of humility seems to be really encountering reality. Like, here's the reality of what I can't control out there. Or here's the reality of what is like unmanageable inside. But
Mm.
it's not. But there's that hope component. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same as my inner critic or my inner judge telling me I'm terrible or that I'm stuck or that everything is like dismal and despairing. It seems like it's much more of a. I mean, it's this again thorough whole person reorientation. I'm shifting my focus from trying to control the world or offload my burdens or my blame onto other people and allowing that what I can control, what I can impact is me. I need to take responsibility for myself. Um, but I'm also not scum. I'm still in the
Mm-hmm.
image of God.
Mm-hmm.
There's still something really wonderful here. I have to have a right view of myself, and in light of that right
Mm-hmm.
view, take right action, and that will. I mean, everybody's context is different, but it sounds like that right action will probably tend to look more like your life will be a little bit more orderly in some fashion, little by little.
Agreed. And the way to summarize kind of what you just said is this phrase that we use. It's in Alcoholics Anonymous, is where I learned it, and it's that alcoholics are, let's see, egomaniacs with an inferiority complex. Or yeah, that's it, right? So again, there's this vacillation. It's very black and white, just like I had said, like doormat or on fire, like blowing
Mm-hmm.
stuff up. And this
Mm-hmm.
is like, I'm the scum of the earth, or I'm better than everyone. And what is wrong with everyone? And if they would just do it my way, then
Mm-hmm.
everything would be fine. And then it vacillates to, I'm terrible. I'm the worst person ever. There's no hope for me. And so that's alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
It's so painful to be going from this to this. And we're just trying to get right sized. We're like, we are children of God. We're not worse than anyone else. We're not better than anyone else. And we talk about being a worker among workers, being a friend among friends. Like, I don't have to be the worst, and I don't have to be the best. The
Mm-hmm.
truth, like you said, humility is the reality of like, I'm kind of just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And
Which is again part of why we need to do this growth and this work in community, because we might be able to read that idea and maybe it'll be like, oh, that's a good idea if we read it, but like we have to experience that. Like, uh, it's been an interesting, this is like the season of my life, like being now in my early 40s and trying to just, I'm a suburban homeowning married dad, and we even have a minivan. And
same.
you're right. And I'm feeling these like old narratives, pulling me to be something like fabulous and extravagant and like super special. And I mean, and then that might be informing why like I have to run my own like group practice. I can't just work for a counselor. Um, but yeah, and I'd actually this was funny for me. Like my hair's a little bit long right now, a little too long for Lola Jessie. um, but but last time it was long and I cut it. I went through this whole internal process, which I've done before. I think every time I cut my hair, I go through this whole process of like, I'm getting a lot of attention for this, and it's kind of cool, and it feels like part of my self image. And I feel like if I cut my hair, like I'm gonna just blend in and be like this invisible guy and like and everything. So which mostly I'm just highlighting, bringing up to highlight like, hey, yeah, this is the kind of inner narrative stuff we get dogged with, and like it's these things that are super deep and tied to these like seemingly innocuous things, but yeah, it's a humility and pride thing. Like I think I need to be seen and I need to be special, and I think that's what I need to survive. So So being just like this quiet guy in the corner is probably actually really good for me.
It's funny, you know, I also think of that, and I've thought about like, well, if I get out of balance in any way, like, you know, like let's say pride, or thinking that I'm special and some, like I'm overly special, like I'm better than other people. I don't know about you, but like I'll be like, oh yeah, kind of get inflated, kind of inflated. God usually finds a way to humble me back down.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And so my new stance is like, no, I only need subtle cues, God. Like I don't need anything to come crashing down anymore. I've had enough of that. You have my attention. You've brought me to my knees with this life circumstance I have, but I am forever, you know, well, it's like a daily practice, it's a moment to moment practice, but like I will take any guidance that you send me. It doesn't need to be a harsh one. I don't need like a slap in the face, just like a little nudge. I got you. I'm right here with you. You know, like can you just make it softer? I promise I'll follow it.
Yeah.
That's just my posture. I'm not saying it works exactly. But I feel like when I go out of balance in any way, God's there to kind of bring it back.
That kind of feels like a really good, wise place to be, though, of like in kind of daily recognizing, like, I have a limit and I'm going to try and watch for indications of that limit, like from wherever they come, like as soon as they show up, and maybe not try to fight it. Uh, Again, just if I can get a sense for, here's the reality of who I am. Let me work with what I have and not with what I don't have. Uh,
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I can feel there's a little piece of that that feels infuriating for like the me that wants to overachieve and just like do whatever I want. Um, but that part also is really exhausting. And then even when I get that thing, it's not usually like as satisfying as I think it
Mhm.
will be.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Well, and so what I hear you talking about is because you talked about one of the ways you survived your family was overachieving, right? And like probably perfectionism. Oof, perfectionism is
oof,
a killer.
yeah.
I remember learning about perfectionism and realizing I just cried and cried. I had so much grief about what I'd put myself through. Like, okay, Elizabeth, if you get straight A's and then you get into this college and you get this SAT score, then you're going to be okay. Then your parents are going to approve of you. And of course, I couldn't make everything perfect. And so then I would beat myself up, just, just abuse myself with like, you're not good enough and what's wrong with you and why didn't you do that? And now, and attaching it to like whether or not I'm going to be safe, I'm going to be loved, and realizing those are all lies and it's just not true. And so recovering from perfectionism, that has to happen. Like I don't really see how anyone can have a connection with God if perfectionism has a hold on them, because that's self-will. Oh, I'm gonna prove my worth. And I'm like, no, our worth comes from God. And I don't have to fight for it. It's just there. But but then it's like all of these gifts that I had, God gave them to me. What can I do to glorify God? What can I do? I'm just here as a servant. I'm just here to, mostly I feel like we're here to help one another. I feel like we're here to carry each other's burdens together. And I really love like the ideas of like the way that trees, they grow really tall, but that's because their roots they're not just in the ground. They are like intertwined with each other. And I feel like that's how the church is supposed to be. I feel like that's how we're supposed to be all the time, showing God's love and really rooting ourselves down into God's love. Like we can have such a bigger impact of love, of acceptance, of grace. And then, you know, when we forgive other people and really generously give grace, then we learn how to give it to ourselves. But if we don't give it to ourselves, it's very difficult to give to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I really love the 12-step recovery and the anonymous part of it. It helps with that. It takes away the pride. And we have another saying called principles before personalities. I had a very distinct experience of this person sharing in a meeting. I was like, I would never talk to this person just in regular life. Like for whatever reason, I'm admitting my own, you know, pride of like socioeconomic level and, you know, all of the different things. Like I can't imagine ever having a conversation. And I can hear the lies in my head of like, this person has nothing that they could say that would speak to me. And then the person said something super profound. It was exactly what I needed to hear that day. It spiritually affected me in a positive way. And it was like, ding, 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 like principles before personalities. Like that is what I love about it, is I just close my eyes and I hear it. And like, yeah, we look different. We have different lives, but that's the beauty of loving all the people, loving all of God's people, and not feeling like I'm better or worse than anyone. We're all just together. And that hierarchy, it separates us.
Mm-hmm.
And anonymous programs puts us all at the same level. And I think it puts us right where we need to be, like the reality of we're just one of many.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really vital step, which again, like you don't get when you're off on your own, or just like, just trying to do like, internet recovery all by yourself. Like, you got to actually like show up in a room of people. Okay. Virtual room, fine. But like show up in a community, participate, kind of see, you find yourself in relationship to other people in a way that you can't on your own. So
absolutely.
So thought question. So say someone listening is getting a sense for, hey, there's something really cool here. I'm recognizing there's something in my life that I can't control. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's pornography, maybe it's food, maybe it's perfectionism, maybe it's like spiritually judging people or whatever. But like you get the sense there is that thing in your life that like is just happening out of your control, whatever that is. And you're feeling like, hey, I might be interested in taking a step to shift my overall life trajectory towards something more healing, hopefully toward God. What would you advise would be a good first step, or a couple of options for a good first step to take?
That's a great question. I feel like it's different for different people. But ideally, I'm going to go with forgiving oneself. Like that process of, what I say to a lot of my patients is, I'm hearing you being really hard on yourself about this thing that you have going on. And I said, how about we pretend like it's your best friend? And they're coming to you and saying, oh, I have this issue. I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a shopaholic, or whatever it is. And then you wouldn't be like, what's wrong with you? You're terrible. Like, how can you even, do that and like judge them and shame them? And no, I would never do that to my best friend. Okay. You'd say, oh, I'm here for you. I want to be supportive to you. How can I help? Like I love you. And like, so we need to say that to ourselves. And instead of like hating that part of ourselves, like that's all us. And so a lot of the times when I have patients on the table, I'll actually say, how about we say thank you to our bodies? Because a lot of the times it's physical, but even if it's emotional, it's like, say thank you to your physical, emotional, spiritual body that's been trying its best to keep you in balance this whole time. Even with all the things that you've been doling out to it, it's trying really hard to maintain homeostasis, balance, peace, love, all of those things. And so we thank it. We thank ourselves. And then we tell ourselves that we love ourselves. And again, this is generally focused on body with my patients, because often people come for acupuncture because of their body. Or even if they have an emotional issue, they usually come for their body. And then that's like the second thing we work on. And so it's thanking, apologizing. Like, I'm really sorry for what I've been putting you through. Like, I've been really harsh with you, and I've been judging you and telling you and shaming you, like, again, towards oneself. And so that process of thanking ourselves, forgiving ourselves, saying we're sorry, and then like, let's every day do something loving. And whenever that negative self-talk comes in, like, let's replace it with a prayer, and like surrendering this whole thing to God. And I like this term, benevolent detachment, from John Eldridge, of I give everyone and everything to Jesus. And I share what happens for me is Jesus becomes as big as the horizon. Like, he's just huge. And then I somehow like fit my kids like in my hand. And then here you go, Jesus. here's my son. Here's my daughter, whatever it is. Here's my ex. And literally physically imagining like giving it over, or whatever issue they're working on, of like, let's just surrender it to Jesus and trust that there is a way out of this. There is a solution. And if we surrender it, the path will be illuminated, even though it might be hard. So then you need people. Like, you're gonna need other human beings on your path with you. And so sometimes I ask, like, do you have someone? And like usually they're like, oh yeah, I guess I could reach out to this person. I was like, you will be blessing them by asking them to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Because generally we want to help each other, but we have to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, you know what, I'm having a hard time. Can you please come be with me? Or will you listen to me? Or can you come pray with me? I have a friend who I'm meeting with tomorrow because she's so wise in her faith. And I said, I have a new situation in my life and I don't know what to pray for. I don't know how to pray, but I know you're going to know. And so I'm meeting with her tomorrow. We don't hang out a lot, but she makes herself available to me. And I just
Mm-hmm.
see that she's very powerful. She knows how to pray. When she prays over me, like Holy Spirit's doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one example of how I reach out to my people and ask for help because I'm very clear that I don't know. And I'm humbled and grateful that there are people who can help me. And then whenever I get to help them, I'm like, this is amazing. This is how we're supposed to be. This is how God made us to help one another.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea of how you talk about starting within your own self. And we'll often talk about, oh, start with you, but put in some specifics on that of really looking at like, how do you relate to yourself? How do you dialogue with yourself, with your body parts, with your internal parts, really tending to those relationships and allowing yourself to, reach out for people and, recognize it's not going to kill me or damage my self-concept or damage my reputation to have like asked for perspective from someone, especially someone you trust. And you're right. I would say like the high majority of the time, people will be really excited and really encouraged that they are now being trusted to help someone, or they're being trusted with someone's inner life. And that generally is a really beautiful thing. So
That's how we build relationships.
yeah, absolutely. So, um, well, I should probably put a cap on this, although I would love to revisit a lot of these topics with you sometime. But so if someone wanted to reach out to you for more conversation or to, explore the Chinese medicine world, the acupuncture world, the Celebrate Recovery world, where are you on the internet and how can people find you?
Absolutely. So my website's a little bit under construction. Technically, my practice is called South Bay Family Acupuncture. So www.southbayfamilyacupuncture.com. Under construction, working on it. Got a couple other things going on in my life. I'm also on Instagram as Chi with a Q. So Chi Flow Mama _acupuncture on Instagram. But I would love to hear from people and I can be of service or answer any questions. And when it comes to acupuncture, it's not about whether or not someone's going to come see me. It's about planting the seed of this is something that could really help you. And and for the needles not to be what deters people, because generally people don't feel the needles. And I'm extremely needle sensitive myself. So I'm really gentle, and you can find a practitioner like that. And it's not all about the needles. And so just to see that like acupuncture can be, and Chinese medicine can really help you and your loved ones. Doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter if it's the mind, the body, the spirit, it can help in all the ways.
Yeah, I would attest to that. It's been a while, but whenever I've done acupuncture in the past, I've like the pinprick is like really minimal, and then it is. It's like I've almost fallen asleep like almost every time I've gotten acupuncture because it's just so relaxing.
So relaxing. And sometimes people need sleep. Like basically your body will do whatever it needs to do to get into balance. And some people are sleep deprived, or we only know how to be in fight or flight or off. We don't even have like an in between, like this is where I am mellow, but acupuncture can help you kind of develop and find that place of like, I'm not on high gear and I'm not asleep. I'm kind of just chill, which is a really great way to go through life. And it saves the nervous system.
Yeah. Okay. Take the needles, save the nerves. Yes. So you can find Elizabeth there at the website under construction. At some point it'll be there. Or if it's not working, you can also reach out to me and I will get you in touch with her. And you can find us here, support our channel at patreon.com/outer circle, or come visit me at www.newpatterncounseling.com. Which actually, funny story, my website's also under construction, but life finds a way.
we're under construction, so
that's true. Yes. We are metaphors for our websites. Yeah. Well, Thank you again so much for sharing some time and some life and some story and some wisdom. And I'm really, thankful to have gotten to, be with you in the periphery of your life for a while. And it's been really great. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.
cool.